Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. Man, I've got a really interesting, super bright artist with us today with Miles Okazaki. A couple of quick announcements. I want to thank the one and only Ben Monder and Pete McCann for connecting Miles and I. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe and subscribe to the video and audio of the show. I'm going to say about Miles, New York City-based guitarist. He's originally from Port Townsend, which is a really small seaside town in Washington State. His main focus is on rhythmic concepts for improvisation, composition, and music theory. His sideman experience over the last 2 decades covers a broad spectrum from standards to experimental music. Artists like Kenny Barron, John Zorn, Stanley Turrentine, Dan Weiss, Matt Mitchell, Jonathan Finlayson, Jane Monheit, Amir El Safar, Darcy James, Argue, and others. I am like so sweating. I thought I'd screw one of those names up. Thank you. He was seen prominently with Steve Coleman in Five Elements from 2009 to 2017. As a leader, Miles has released 5 albums of original compositions over the last 12 years. This guy is brilliant because check out what he did. He released recently a 6-album recording of the complete compositions of Thelonious Monk for solo guitar. The record is called Works, and it made tons of critics' best of 2018 lists. He's taught guitar and rhythmic theory at the University of Michigan for 5 years. He teleports there twice a week, and he holds degrees from Harvard, Manhattan School of Music, and Juilliard, which means, yes, I have my thesaurus lined up because this guy's going to talk way over my head, which is not hard. His most recent album is The Sky Below. It's a great record, man. You're putting out tons of energy in your music, man, and that's really cool. And The Sky Below made NPR's Best Music of 2019 Critics Poll. Miles, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Craig.
You're welcome, man. My pleasure. You started on classical guitar at age 6, and you were gigging on electric at 14. Did you come from like a musical family?
No, visual artist, actually. My mother's a painter. My father's a photographer. My stepfather's a builder, house builder. So crafts, people working with their hands, but not so much music. I mean, we had music collections. My father, especially, is a jazz fan, so that's sort of where I got into that music. But I got into guitar just by, I wanted something to make some noise on, and we didn't have a piano, or anything like that. It was pretty cheap, so.
Yeah, that's a young age, though, 6. So how did you took to it really quickly, obviously?
Well, I had I just had an acoustic, like a small scale nylon string, and then I had a teacher that showed me some stuff, like some bluegrass stuff. He was kind of an old country guy, so he showed me like some old tunes. And then I tried to start reading. I never got very good at that when I was a kid, but learning Beatles songs and some Stevie Wonder tunes and things like that, and pop tunes, and classical pieces. I mean, I didn't really play classical guitar, and I still don't really. I've always practiced it, but I never have got like a legitimate technique. It's sort of fake.
Well, that's relative, man. I don't think your techniques or anything are fake, but I bet starting out on bluegrass, which is incredibly complicated, that was probably a great asset for you because everything pretty much outside of that had to be pretty easy.
Well, I wouldn't say I got very good at that style. It was just an idea of like picking patterns, right hand.
Yeah.
That type of stuff was interesting to me because that's sort of similar to classical.
Yeah.
Well, like I didn't actually learn how to use a pick until much later. I was all just fingers. So
oh wow.
Still is sort of my most natural feeling on the guitar is still with the fingers, And I like to practice nylon string a lot and stuff, although it's weird because I don't play it that much live.
Right.
It's not as practical, really. But yeah, I like that whole thing of counterpoint and being able to do a few different things at the same time. And I guess bluegrass has that. And then the the first little classical pieces I would work on, like the, Bach Bourrée and those kind of things, I would do those. And I would just play them over and over again. I wouldn't say I learned a lot of stuff. I just kind of played stuff to the point where I liked it, and I would just play it to hear myself play.
So it was a labor of love always for you. It wasn't like, oh man, I got to go practice and I'm super disciplined when I'm 6 and 7, so I'll do
No,
this.
I wasn't disciplined at all. I mean, I was motivated by the fun of getting something together, and then it sounds cool. It's kind of like a magic trick or something, But
Yeah, man, it is. I'm gonna write that down. I like that. That is very cool.
I mean, it's like, how does this, work? It's like these string, like this. It's crazy. It's a piece of wood with some stuff strung across it, and you can make like. I mean, it's it's crazy to think about. If you think about it too much when you're playing, it's
yeah, message. But I always think that, man, like if I practice for a couple of hours, and I almost feel like when I finish, it's like a superpower.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that the playing is like, but having that experience, it's like a, superpower kind of a thing. It's really, really unique in that.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I felt like that. I think before I understood anything about music theory or composition or history or anything like that, I think I just thought it was like a kind of magic thing. It was like,
yeah,
it was, I mean, where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of other distractions. There wasn't any internet, obviously, and there wasn't any, I didn't really watch TV or anything like that. We played in the woods and messed around on bikes, and then played instruments, so that was about it. It was all tactile, it was like the feeling of it.
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
I remember I had Steve Vai on here, and he said something like, something to the effect of, guitar was my own little secret.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's what it feels like, man, when it's a very cool thing.
Definitely. Yeah. It's like, well, you definitely, that nobody else can do it because nobody else is bothering to do it, and then, at that age, and it's a cool thing. And if you're really shy, which I was, it's a way you can express yourself also without having to talk, you sit there and do that,
Okay. So let's talk about that, because your music is far from shy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really like, I'm going to say in your face. I don't mean that in a negative way at all. You're giving 110% in that thing is what I'm saying, and you're not shy to put out all this great energy. Are you still shy now as an adult?
Oops, sorry. My internet is, sorry, I lost you for a second. Can we just
no worries. I apologize. Is it straight now?
Yeah, it says unstable, but that's
me. That might be me. Not the internet. It's just getting a read. Your music is far from shy, mm-hmm. right? It's really energetic. There's a lot going on at times. Are you still personally shy, or have you like grown out of that?
I'm more comfortable when I have a guitar in my hand, sometimes, I mean, it depends on the situation, but if I can sit around and talk about music or something, then I'll be fine. But other stuff.
You tend to be on the shy side.
I mean, when I get on stage, I can really do. I feel like I can do anything. I mean, not technically, but I mean, I feel like comfortable.
Sure.
Feel comfortable in that situation because I kind of know what to do. There's a mission. And there's no choice. You don't have any choice, really. You can't just sit there and kind of halfway do it. So if people are watching you and people have come out to see you and stuff like that, you have to go 100%, or as you said, 110.
Yeah. Well, I think. Did you know but you're that? I mean, I don't know you at all, and I'll know you a little better. But just in reading all the things you've done, you're that guy. You're not a 50% guy. You're all in or nothing.
Yeah, my wife tends to tell me that I'm a little bit extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. But most driven people are.
Yeah. Well,
know.
Yeah. I mean, also I tend to gravitate towards other people that are pushing me pretty hard. So then that gets good results. Some are not good maybe, but just extreme results, sort of like, okay, we're going to do, you know, this sort of body of work and work through this stuff and work through that stuff. And you know, living in New York, there's a lot of people like that, I think.
Yeah.
Where I grew up, it's more sort of chill out there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go back into that at some point. So.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I looked up the census of Port Townsend, and in 2018, it was 9,710. That was probably like the 3 buildings in where I lived next to each other, right? Yeah. So that's a tiny little place. So that means, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was probably 6,000 when you were a kid. Yet 1997, you moved to the like diametrically opposite place in the country to the city. So I was curious, what prompted that move, and what kind of culture shock did you have to deal with in the beginning?
Yeah, that was funny. Well, I mean, I started, you know, I was a real jazz snob in high school. Like, I wasn't really even interested in what pop music was going on from when I was about 12 or 13 until 17 or 18. I mean, that's all I listened to was jazz records. And
you mean bebop, or like what in particular?
Yeah, bebop. I mean, early stuff at the beginning, Charlie Christian, you know, Lester Young, Wes Montgomery, Grant Green. I mean, in terms of guitar players, Wes Montgomery, Grant Green, and they're like George Benson, you know, and then Thelonious Monk, you know, all just classic stuff, you know. I wasn't interested in any kind of far out stuff, like no Ornette Coleman, no, like, not really late Coltrane, no, like late Miles Davis, no, nothing past like 1961 or something. You know, it was like kind of like Wes Montgomery in 65, you know, mid 60s. I was kind of dogmatic, like I was just trying to learn like standards and learn this sort of tradition stuff.
Yeah,
I was interested in that, you know. And in terms of pop music and like, you know, early 90s, I wasn't interested. You know, as grunge was just going to get started at that point. And people were like, oh, you're from Seattle or that area, you must know about this. And I was like, no, man, I know, like, you know, ask me about like, you know, Jimmy Rainey or something, like some weird, you know. But
was it hard? Was all this music accessible in a little tiny? This is like the New York ignorance in me coming out, probably.
No, it was not accessible.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I mean, my father had a big record collection. He didn't live with me when at that age, so he would send me some tapes, you know, and he would send me. It was interesting. He would send me tapes of like I'd be trying to learn a song like Body and Soul or something like that, and he would send
that's
me
cool.
15 versions of Body and Soul on it. So I still actually learn tunes when I teach tunes. Now I have students do that. Of course, now it's easy. They just go on YouTube and there's 15 versions of Body and Soul right there, you know.
Yeah.
Just sort of learn, you know, listen to this and kind of cross-reference it and sort of, you know, find the average, you know. And that's kind of how I learned tunes.
I bet you still have those tapes.
I still have those tapes.
Yeah, that's like, and that's a cool thing, man. Yeah.
And then I had a great teacher named Michael Townsend, who's still there. I go visit him.
Wait a minute.
Go back.
As in Port Townsend? I mean, no, it's not.
Same name. No relation.
Yeah. No relation to Port.
No, Port Wine. But he was like an ethnomusicologist, so he would be like, well, that's like he's like a hipster, you know. He would know a proto hipster or something. Like he knew like all the coolest thing of every genre, you know. So he'd be like, oh, you have to check out like Frank Zappa, or you have to check out like Muñequitos de Matanzas, or if you're into Cuban music, or you have to check out, like, he kind of knew like the cool stuff. Like, right. Like, oh, if you're interested in jazz, you should check out, you know, this Dexter Gordon record or something. Like, there's just like some stuff you wouldn't really know. Like he knew all this stuff. So he worked at the record store. So I would order it and I'd wait, you know, a couple weeks, maybe sometimes way long time. If it was an obscure thing, you know, it'd be like Sun Ra or something. I'd be like, oh, you know. And that stuff I didn't really like at that point. But
yeah, that's out there, man.
Try to get me to like it, and I'd be like, no, this and
that. I know. My son does that with me. My younger son, he's constantly sending me certain, and I'm like, man, I don't like that, you know. And you know, when someone does it so much, I love my son, of course, and I appreciate it. But it's like, fuck, stop sending me shit. You know, I don't say that, but it's what I want to say. I don't like it. Anyway, sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I've got
off my chest.
an interesting relationship with kids and music, but yeah, that was happening. So that type of thing, and those, what was it like? You're talking about late '80s to early '90s. So there was the one record store in town, Quimper Sound.
Yeah.
It was like, he would curate it, so they would have some hip stuff in there anyway. And it's not like you really need that many records, to kind of get started. Like I would listen to Dexter Gordon, Our Man in Paris for like 2 months, and kind of learn everything on it. It's not like it really runs out, So, I mean, I still listen to that record, and it's still stuff on there, playing or whatever, So, so those, a great record, whatever kind of record it is, it always continues to show new things to you, because you can hear more after a certain time. You go back to it and you're like, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't hear that, I can hear that listening to a Beatles record now or something, So anyway, I had those type of records, Beatles records and whatever, classic stuff in the home record collection. And I had like my little jazz collection. It was like 20 records, and it grew over time. Now it's humongous. So,
do you still play vinyl now?
Yeah, I have a record player, but it's like in the living room area, and the kids put the records on. So the records I have out there are kind of trash records, like they're all scratched. Because I tell them, like, I'm cooking dinner, and I'm like, oh, put on a record, and they do it, and they're like, So they, I have nicer records that I have in a different place, but the ones that are out are just sort of like standard, bread and butter stuff that they can just put on and dance around to and stuff like that.
That's cool, man, that you got your kids listening to music as well. That's nice.
Yeah, and operating a record player, I think.
Yeah.
Do that. Drive
Very
stick,
cool.
all those kind of things.
Drive a stick shift, right on, man. Right on.
Yeah.
All right. So you said, okay, so you're sort of a snob in high school, only listen to jazz. How did that take me through how did that bring you to New York, man?
Oh, well, I had a detour. I mean, I went to Harvard for college. So I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that was my culture shock moment, really, was going from this small Pacific Northwest town to Boston,
What did you study? You study music there?
The main thing was like the weather. It was like, oh man, this is really cold. But
wait a minute, isn't it cold out there where you are?
No, not where. I mean, it never really even snows, barely, So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I figured the Pacific Northwest would be cold. That's not correct.
North, but it's not the way the patterns work. That's a whole other thing. But there's some weather patterns at the mountains and stuff that keeps it pretty mild. So.
Very cool.
Unstable. Okay, that's fine. All right. So, but yeah, I was not really a very exceptional student. I mean, I went through a few different majors, and I was just kind of trying things out, really.
Wait a minute, you had to be an exceptional student to get into Harvard.
I was good at taking tests, and I was good at.
Gotcha.
I was good at all. I mean, I'm good at, like, generally, like under pressure. Like if somebody puts pressure on me, I can perform well. That's kind of like one of the things that I don't have that many skills, but that's one of them. It's sort of like, okay, I can focus really well if I need. So I was always good at taking tests, and that could kind of get. And I was like really motivated to do things. So I had like a lot of activities, and I had a lot of music. I think the main thing was like music. I prepared this like tape and all this stuff. Sent it to the band director there, a guy named Tom Everett, who's I'm still in touch with. He's retired now, but I went. I was really good at math and physics and science and stuff, and I went there and I tried to study that, but it didn't work out. I was like, because I kind of studied. I found a mentor in high school, a couple of mentors to teach me, and a couple of friends some advanced science stuff. We got like far beyond the high school, what was available at the high school. And I love that way of studying. I still do, like, find a mentor and just suck up their information, no particular order, just sort of like whatever's interesting, work on this thing, work on that.
Yeah.
And then eventually it kind of fills in to be, a rounded kind of holistic thing. But
yeah.
In the beginning, you're just kind of doing random stuff, And that's how I learned music and everything, Sort of like, I read the liner notes, and that's turns me on to this thing, and that, so I like that way of learning, this sort of this free association. And then when I got to college, it was like, okay, we're in class, and you do this, and then this, and then this, and it's all a linear
Yes.
thing. And I was like, no, I can't make my way through this, and with the just trusting that it's going to get better, at some point. It probably would, but the patient, all these sort of like this this series of courses that you had to take to get into the higher level stuff, So I bounced around. I mean, I graduated. I was an English major. Ended up with an English degree. I never knew how much writing we would be doing, all these emails and stuff. So it actually comes in.
So it helped you. You better justify that effort somehow, Miles. It's a lot of work over there, I'm sure.
4 years, but I was playing the whole time. I was playing gigs and stuff like that. I never stopped playing music or anything.
Do you know, you happen to know a guy named Duke Levine?
Duke Levine.
Because he was playing in Boston. I don't know how old you are. You're probably a little younger than him, but he was playing there quite a bit.
I was in Boston from 93 to 97. I don't know Duke Levine.
Yeah.
But I didn't know a lot of people. I knew a few people, around the Berkeley scene and around the Harvard scene.
Yeah.
Which was a scene, but a lot of weddings and casual, what they call casuals. And
sure.
Yeah.
So you graduated Harvard, and what outside of the weather, any other culture shock stuff?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of population density, and then just running into a lot of really highly accomplished and intelligent people. I was like, oh, okay, there's like it's just a different scale than I was used to. Professors and other students. I've always been and I was always looking for mentors. I was looking for a mentor. I had a mentor that in college named Anthony Davis for a little while, who teaches now in California. Great composer. Of course, at that time in Harvard, if you wanted to study jazz, it was in the African American Studies department, not the music.
You got to be kidding me.
Didn't get music credit for jazz, so studying jazz. You got credit in the Afro-American Studies department.
Wow,
so
that's weird.
I studied Bach and stuff like that too, and that you got credit for, but not that. It was all strange. Now it's different. There's a friend of mine there named Vijay Iyer who's changed everything up. Now it's all different. So much more sort of forward thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens after Harvard, man?
I went to New York, more school. I mean, I didn't really want to go to. I was kind of like, I don't like school, but I went to more school just to sort of meet some people. So,
Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah. I went there and I met some people there. Yeah.
Was it weird going to New York? Like, okay, then again, there's another jump from Boston to New York. I mean, it's very similar, but it's not density-wise. It's still not as close.
Yeah, I mean, I was visiting New York a lot already, so it was cool.
Okay.
I had a sense of what New York was like. I mean, you don't really know what it's like until you live there and pay rent and stuff like that. But
pay all the bills, man. Yeah.
Or not, but a lot of the people I still play with, I met during that time.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had a great mentor there named Rodney Jones, a guitar player who's I don't know if do you know Rodney Jones?
I don't.
He's he's born in '56, so he's of that generation of people like Henry Johnson and let's see, Victor. Victor is a little older.
The other Johnston.
What's that?
The other jazz guy from the Randy Johnston. He's around the same age.
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, Rodney was my teacher then, and I stayed with him for about 10 years studying.
Oh, wow.
And doing sort of helping him out with. He was doing music production for a lot of different types of things. I mean, he was playing on television shows, and he was musical director for Lena Horne and for Ruth Brown, and he was playing with Maceo Parker.
Oh, that had to be cool.
And so he was like a funk and R&B player, but I mean, great jazz player. He played with Dizzy Gillespie, and so he was very versatile.
Wow.
I mean, should check him out.
I'm going to. Wrote his name. What, where were you living at the time?
I was living up on the, I don't know what you call that neighborhood, sort of like south of Harlem, on the west side. Um,
Oh, like in the 90s?
122nd and Broadway, around there.
Yeah,
And
that's Harlem.
I lived in a bunch of different places
Yeah.
around the area. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of questions. Two things you said that were interesting. You said, I always perform well under pressure. And I
Well,
took,
I should revise that. Yeah, but perform better than not under pressure.
why is that, do you think?
Uh, I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I think that it has something to just do with focus and say like, okay, now we're going to focus in on this thing, and and I'm fairly good. I'm not good at for like multitasking, for example. You know, like I can't really, like I'm working on something, somebody's talking to me, I can't hear them and stuff like that. Like I have some kind of tunnel vision with that, but I am good at focusing on stuff, and I don't tend to, like, you know, the car goes out of control or something. Like I'm pretty good with like just sort of, you know, getting it back. You know, like those types of, like in a situation where something kind of like intense is happening, I tend to like calm down, you know. So I don't know why that is, but you know, and then situations where stuff is, nothing's happening, I get the other way, you know, like I want to get
Antsy?
yeah, a little antsy, you know.
It's funny. I'm very similar to that. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, so I don't know where that comes from or anything. It's just a tendency, you know. People are wired certain ways, you know.
Yeah. The other thing you said was, I was always looking for mentors. That is such a smart thing. Where did you get that from, man?
I don't know. It has to do with the way of learning. I don't like, despite all this school stuff, I never liked being in a class where, you know, there's a bunch of people and there's one person up in front talking, you know.
Mm.
I like to talk to one person and focus on them, and try to understand where they're coming from, you know, and really get deep in that. I feel like that's an old way of learning. And, you know, I mean, I studied different things. I studied some Indian music, and like in that tradition, for example, like that's really the way it is. Like you study with this one person, like in that way, it's like your whole life you study with the same person, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was always interested in that way of learning, as opposed to like a curriculum, or there's a set thing that you know you go through, and I guess I'm still kind of like that. Like even with other stuff, like my wife will say like, "Hey, you want to go to a yoga class?" And like, oh. I mean, I don't have anything against yoga, but I don't want to be in a class. I just don't want to be this thing where everybody's doing the same thing, you know.
Are you good with?
Maybe.
No, I totally. Are you good with like taking orders? I hate to put it a better way, because nobody wants to take orders. It sounds like the military or something. Are you good? Like, would you rather be like, I work for myself because I'm unemployable.
Mm.
It's not that I want to boss everybody around. I don't want to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a good thing, I just don't want to hear it. I want to be left. I mean, I'm pretty independent, and I like that. Are you like, can you work for somebody, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's my main thing, is working for other people. I mean, I love working for other people. I like accomplishing tasks and I take pride in doing things well, you know.
Yeah. I don't mean as a sideman. I mean, no, not as a sideman, not as a musician. Sorry. I guess just in general, are you good being told what to do?
Well, it depends. I mean, if I'm on well, I keep saying if I'm on a gig.
Yeah, erase that, because that's music. That's different.
Yeah.
Because that's a pleasure.
Then I would say I'm fine being told what to do if it makes sense to me.
That's the catch, man. That's the catch. That's not.
I'll give you an example. Like I joined the food co-op. I don't know. There's a really funny article in the New Yorker about the food co-op in Park Slope. It's like the communist regime in the middle. in the middle of Park Slope. I mean,
Right.
their rules is like when hippies get organized. You know, it's like it's way more totalitarian than the Republicans. You know,
That's so funny.
but oh, I probably shouldn't. I mean, you should take that out. Well, whatever.
No,
But
leave it. If it's in the Times, leave it, man.
but anyway, there's rules. There's tons and tons of rules. But then when you go there, you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like, I'm fine. Like, you know, people are yelling at you all the time. No, you got to stack the oranges this way, and you have to put the crate, you know, this. They have to, you know, go alternate this way so they don't fall. But there's always a rule. There's always a reason for it. And somebody put a lot into that. And it's like, okay, I get it. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I'll follow that rule. Yeah, it makes sense to me. But if somebody's like, if I'm at like the airport, you know, and it's like, okay, this TSA, you take your computer out. This one, you don't have to take your computer, and they're always changing the rules.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of this? All these rules, you know, like there's so many things like that, you know, where it's like, okay, you know, these rules are a waste of time, you know. So I like rules because they keep things moving, you know. But other kinds of rules that actually don't, you know. So yeah. I guess that's the distinction I would make. I don't know, but I don't have any problem following direction and orders. No, I think that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah. Except when it doesn't make sense.
I have a son who's a questioner, you know, who's like, why, you know, why do I have to, you know, what's the big deal? Why do I have to go to school? You know, like, you know.
That's your older one.
Yeah, you have to get to he's the middle one, and you have to get to. It leads to these big philosophical, you know, quandaries at like 7 a.m. And I'm like,
man, please just eat your breakfast. I beg you.
We're not going to go down this every time, you know. So
he's just wearing you down. My middle one is like that. That's the one who's like with the rap, with the music. He sends me all this rap music, and he just is wearing you down. But he did that as a kid, so that's your future, man. He'll be sending you stuff like, you know, dad. Yeah. Never ends. Which is good. I'm glad that he talks to me. Most kids don't even talk to their parents, so I'm happy. I'm grateful. Okay, so you went to Manhattan School of Music. What made you go to more school after hearing this?
Oh, after you mean when I came to New York, going to Manhattan School and all that?
Yeah, after you didn't like school and it, you know, wasn't an idea.
I needed to meet some people, and that seemed like they were going to give me a scholarship, so I didn't really have to pay much. And
okay.
There were a lot of great musicians there, clearly, you know, and I needed a teacher, you know, because I knew I had bad technique and I couldn't read. You know, there were a lot of problems that I had, you know, like because everything up to them was totally self-taught. You know, I mean, not totally, because I had a guitar teacher, that guy I was talking about before, but he wasn't like a real technical, like he wouldn't get on my case technically about how to do picking and how to play. Like you couldn't say like, well, I want to learn about George Benson, if you couldn't really show me that stuff, you know?
Okay.
So everything I did was just kind of like, oh, I hear it, and then I'm guessing that it's probably done this way. And for old stuff, you know, they didn't really have videos so much. Not like if you get like guitar, if I got like Guitar Player magazine or something, it wasn't like
there was no YouTube.
Yeah, it wasn't, and they weren't talking about the old stuff. They were talking about like, you know, Steve Vai or something. So, you know,
yeah,
it was cool, but it wasn't what I was into at that point. So everything was self-taught. I needed a teacher. I needed somebody to fix up my technique. I was like, well, I need to work. If I'm going to go to New York, I need to learn how to work, like, you know, get gigs and work. I didn't even
Good for you for recognizing that.
Well, it was the only thing. I mean, it was either that or side jobs, or day jobs, you know, which I did a few. But I really wanted to do whatever had to be done to just play some guitar. I didn't even care what situation it was.
Sure.
So I worked on that quite a bit. I learned how to sight read, and I had to totally change my technique, especially my picking technique was awesome.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How long did that take? Because that's not easy.
It took about 3 years, I'd say, to really change it over. It was like I had a technique that was kind of like this, like my hand going down and my wrist resting on the bridge, that kind of picking, you know. And which is worked. It works for a lot of people, but it didn't. You know, when I talked to Rodney, I was like, well, I want to learn how to play like, you know, George Benson. And he's like, well, if you want to do that, that's not the way to do it. You have to have your hand open and facing up like this, you know.
Okay.
And I'm doing it for people who are listening, not watching, but you have to be able to like basically see the palm of your hand when you're picking.
Sure.
and that takes a long time to make that change. I mean, that's a big change, you know. So now I kind of go around and do different things, but I'm basically of that George Benson, you know, way of picking.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my first, you know, entry into, this is what's required of people in this arena, you know.
Did you meet anybody at school that you're still buddies with today, or that is also a professional musician today?
Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, a drummer who's coming over here, he's like in an hour, named Dan Weiss, great drummer. I met at that time, and we play all the time still. In fact, we're doing a big project this week and next month. We have a bunch of different projects going on. Saxophonist named Miguel Zenon that I'm doing a project with later this year that I met at the same time.
Zanana?
Zenon.
Zenon. Okay.
You know, and bass player named John Flower, who moved to Los Angeles, who I just visited out there last week. He's doing all kinds of gigs out there. He's like doing the pop music scene in LA, you know, and no, there's tons of people. I mean,
that's cool.
It radiates out, you know, friends of friends and all that. You know.
And then you wound up going to Juilliard. What was that?
Yeah, well, that was another thing. That was later. That was like almost 10 years later.
Oh, that was like adult education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, but
almost adult education.
I already had 2 kids at that point, so it was Rodney Jones, the guitar player, who I studied with back in Manhattan School. And he called. I hadn't talked to him for a while, and he called me up. He was like, "Hey, man, you want to come get a doctorate?" And I was like, "No, like I don't want to go. No more school, man. I've been out here for 10 years already. Like, what do I?" He's like, "No, you don't have to pay, and we just hang out and play guitar." I was like, it wasn't a doctorate. It's just a 2-year degree called an artist diploma. So I was like, well, what can I study? Because there were some things at that point I was like, I have like a lot of holes in my education that I want to fill up. And the main one was I wanted to study counterpoint, like real counterpoint, like study Bach and learn how to write that way. Like
wow.
Like, you know, there's a field, I don't know what it is, a thing called species counterpoint. Have you heard of that?
I have not. I know counterpoint is, but what is species counterpoint?
There's a treatise called Gradus ad Parnassum by Joseph Fuchs, and I think that's right. And it sort of lays out this method of composition called species counterpoint, and it's sort of like it's very methodical. You do like 1 note against 1 note, 2 notes against 1 note, 3 notes, and then an imitative counterpoint, and invertible counterpoint, where, you know, there's a great teacher at Juilliard named Kendall Briggs, who teaches that species counterpoint, but with the language of common practice, meaning the language of Bach, which is I always loved playing Bach. So that was kind of my thing, you know. And I was like, okay, I want to study with that guy, and I want to study with Kenny Barron, who's like a legendary jazz pianist who was teaching there. So I studied with those 2 for 2 years, and I didn't have to pay, and I just sort of played in this group to represent the school, and it was cool. I mean, it was not.
That had to be a lot of work having 2 young kids and then having to go.
It wasn't a big time commitment. It was like a couple of days a week. Okay. But I did fill in a couple of gaps. I'm always trying to do that. You know, I'm always looking for ways to sort of shore up the deficiencies, you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I always have this saying, smart people realize how little they know.
Oh yeah.
Stupid people think they know everything. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, teenagers think they know everything. You know, I thought I knew everything when I was 16 or something, you know. But yeah, the deeper you get, the more you see.
You see the ocean out in front of you it's impossible. Whatever you're studying, you know, it's really truly impossible, man.
Yeah, and then when you start traveling and stuff, then it's a whole other thing, you know.
So. Okay, so I want to go back. You placed second. I think this is when you're out west in the Thelonious Monk International Guitar Festival. I was like Monk was a piano player, so I was completely surprised that this even existed.
Oh yeah, Thelonious Monk jazz competition. That's a thing in Washington D.C. at the Kennedy Center. That was in 2005, so I was already living in New York.
Okay.
Um, that was interesting. I mean, it's funny because Monk was quite a radical person and composer and stuff like that. He was considered to be quite avant-garde, or whatever at the time. It took him a long time for him to be accepted as a mainstream artist. But the vibe of that contest, competition was like extremely mainstream. Like the people who win it are generally like very sort of like within a certain way of playing.
Okay.
Which is fine. I mean, I was doing that at that time. I was playing mostly with vocalists and singers and stuff like that, and I still don't like the idea of competitions. But I really needed some money. I was going through some kind of hard times, so I took the opportunity to do that, and I got some money. I got enough money to make my first record, so that was cool. And
good.
Pay a couple of debts off. So.
Good for you, man.
But it wasn't, I would say, a pleasant experience. I didn't like that whole thing of competing and this is that, and there's judges looking at you and all that. To me, it felt like that same thing, like you're in some kind of class and you're being graded and all that.
Yeah.
There's always recoil.
Music is not a competition. Yeah.
So now I don't. I mean, they had the guitar competition again this year, actually. And they sent me an email that was like, hey, can you recommend students? I didn't recommend anybody. I just didn't feel like that was the thing to do.
Yeah. Good for you, man.
That,
Is that when did you get the idea to record all of Monk's works? That's just the whole concept of that is so big. It must have meant quite a lot to you to take something like that on.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I mean, I had the idea when I was a teenager, because at some point I went through, like, I tracked down most of the records. Like most of my records were Monk. I had like a pretty good collection. And then I went through my father's records and I got like a list of tunes. It wasn't as complete as what they have now. I mean, it might have been 50 tunes or something like that. And I was like, I got to learn all these tunes.
Wow.
But I couldn't, I didn't have I didn't have the technique, first of all. I didn't really understand the theory and how to improvise on these type of things or not, and what was an appropriate way to interpret them, because a lot of stuff you do when you're younger is really tasteless in terms of the interpretation, and arrangement and stuff like that. So yeah, it took me, I don't know, 30 more years, to really get it together. But I don't think it's that much material. I mean, it is in terms of like maybe what people usually do, but it's not like a lot of material in terms of what classical musicians do, for example. I mean, like Glenn Gould would sit there or, whoever.
Yeah.
The pianist who recorded the entire Well-Tempered Clavier books 1 and 2. I mean, that's probably about the same amount of material,
Yeah, but to do these interpretations is not easy. That is
yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's interpretations too if you're playing Well-Tempered Clavier or something like that. You're making choices, but you're not making quite as you're not making alterations.
You're not making 70.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of tracks, man.
It was a good piece of work, and I don't think I'll do something like that again. Although I'm not going to say never, but it was pretty. There was a point when I really didn't want to continue,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous, my hands are hurting and my brain is hurting and all kinds of stuff. But, if you do something slowly over a long period of time, you can get through quite a bit.
How long did that take you?
About a year.
That's incredible that it only took a year, man.
Well, and it was a year of sort of like when I have a few hours in between other stuff, I'll jump down to the basement and record a track.
Right.
It wasn't like I was sitting there doing it all the time.
No, I get it, but it's tough because it's the same thing. I mean, the burnout factor is huge with that. Something like,
Yeah.
you know, you just kind of alluded to, you know, that's not easy at all to focus on that one, even though it's 70 tracks, it's one thing really, you know. I'll give you a lot of credit.
You have to visualize the end, you know. What was actually helping me was at the same time I was doing that, I was training to run the New York City Marathon. So, and it was kind of the same process. It was like, and although I had never run a marathon before, but I never had this type of project before either. So in a way, it was kind of the same. But it was the same thing. It was like, okay, you don't really feel like doing it, but you just do it.
Right.
That's just the way it is. And you do this part and you do this part and it adds up, but you cannot get it done any other way. You can't wait and then do it at the end. You know, you can't record all this stuff. You can't record continuously for a week. Your hands will burn out, you know. So there's a certain kind of graduated way of doing it, you know, over time, that I was in that frame of mind anyway, you know, or I kind of always do things that way, you know.
You're okay being the tortoise.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
More than okay. That's really the only way that I am. Yeah.
And you know, I've learned that I used to, when I was doing projects when I was younger, man, I was the kind of guy, I would work for 4 days straight. And then I realized that is really stupid, you know, and now I never do that. You know, just better self-care and just you're going to get a better performance out of whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Out of yourself, you know.
But there's a difference between, because I know like there's a difference between tortoise and then like just not getting shit done, you know.
Huge.
It's a thing about doing stuff consistently all the time a little
bit.
You know? And because some people are like, well, I'm working on this slowly, but that actually means not working on it at all.
Right.
Kicking a can down the road type of thing, you know. But so I try to there's kind of a fine line, you know, between that and the other thing. So you have to sort of be aware of that if that's your way of working, you know?
Well, you got to know the difference between being busy and making progress.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to be busy.
Yeah.
You know, you got to just make progress. How did the marathon go, man?
It went pretty well. You know, I made some critical errors, you know, in terms of my mental game, you know, very rookie mistakes, just going out too fast and then getting worn out at about mile 20, you know.
Yeah.
I'm training now for this year, and I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to train better, you know. I'm trying to learn from previous thing. You know, I'm a amateur, like just a gross amateur in this area, but it's fascinating to me, and it's also keeps me healthy, you know. So
hey, what's a cool thing to do? I've done it twice. You know, they have the 5-borough bike ride. Have you ever seen that? It's like the first weekend in May. It's really cool. They shut down basically like the whole city in various spots.
Yeah. And
you start down at like, I don't know, Battery Park or something like that. And you ride up, and it's really weird. You're riding up 6th Avenue. There's nothing, everything's shut down. There's no cars.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I've done that twice, but if you ever get a chance, it's a little pricey, but it's a fun event with your family. I did it with my son, and another year I did it with my wife, and I'm going to take everybody up there one time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Our bike game is a little weak. It's just so scary to have your kids riding a bike around in the city. So you really have to keep an eye on them and stuff. I mean, when I was a kid, it was all bikes. We were like roaming gangs of bikes, you know, but
sure.
You can't do around here, you know.
So. No. It's a little different now, man. No, but this isn't a race. It's just a ride.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to practice for it. Your kids they'll make it. It's a casual ride. It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's 30,000 people. So unless you're in the front, you're not racing anything. You can't just because of the volume of people, but it was a lot of fun, man. And, it was just a good family event. You know, you're pushing everybody and stuff. So that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to mention a few artists that you've worked with. Tell me how you wound up connecting with them and an interesting story or cool story about working with them. Let's start with Stanley Turrentine.
Oh, well, I only worked with Stanley Turrentine for a very brief time, right before he passed away. Um, that was in 2000. So that was one of the gigs that Rodney subbed to me.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, I mean, that was great. I learned, I kind of knew most of those tunes already, and I, you know, it was great to play Sugar and, you know, those kind of tunes with him, try and get the phrasing and all that stuff. I mean, it was amazing, you know, but it was very short, you know, like one tour and then one week in Birdland. And then I was supposed to join earlier. Actually, I flew out to Seattle because he was playing there, and I was so green, you know. I was like, hey man, I live out by there, so I'll just go home like for Christmas, and then I'll meet you there. And he was like, okay, cool, you know. And then I got there, and he was, and I you know, I did it on my own dime, of course, and I didn't have a suit, you know, so I bought a suit, and then
that's an expensive gig.
Yeah. No, I was going home anyway, but it was sort of like I was just trying to, I don't know what, I was thinking I would make it easier for them to hire me if I just made my own way out there. And then I went out there and I showed up, and he still had the other previous guitar player. He was like, oh man, we didn't get around to this guy was going to leave, but he decided to stay on or whatever. So that was
so what did you learn from that, man?
I learned to be a little more, well, I don't know what I learned. I guess it was just a disappointment, but
sure.
But
yeah.
it was also like, oh, you should, I mean, there are certain things you need to talk about, and you can't just sort of be so eager to please that people don't even know.
But that's a great lesson. That's a valuable lesson, man.
Yeah. But that was, you know, I did end up playing in that group a little bit, you know, just a little bit, a little taste, you know. But tenor and guitar, that combination is classic, you know. So,
yeah.
And, you know, thinking about George Benson and then other people like Dave Stryker and other guitar players who played in those groups. I mean, it's a great tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about John Zorn?
Oh, well, that's recent. I only met Zorn a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago or something like that. Zorn is, I don't know how much you know about him, but he's been sort of experimental side of music in New York since, you know, for forever, since he began. He was always like in this area, you know, and so he's like, I'm going to do this thing no matter what, and it took him a long time to be recognized for that. I mean, I play.
It's a tight niche, man.
It is a certain scene, and I've never really been fully, I don't feel like, in any particular scene, you know. I mean, some people are like, I tend to jump around a little bit, which has probably been a detriment to me career-wise, you know. But I don't like to just be in one thing and be sort of pigeonholed, you know. So I like to sort of, I do this, and then at a certain point it's like, okay, this is becoming too much of, you know, every review that gets written or whatever is like, this is a person from that thing, and then you're associated with that, and so Zorn is an opposite kind of thing from the more sort of like what they say straight ahead kind of world, you know. But who was it? I guess it's Mary Halverson. Do you know her?
No.
Mary Halverson. She's a star of the sort of improvised music scene, creative music, jazz, so-called jazz, and stuff like that. And she called me to do a 2-guitar project with Zorn playing these. He took some period of time, a few months. He sat down and wrote like hundreds of these one-page tunes. There was like 300 or 400 of them or something, called bagatelles. And the description of that is like,
I mean,
you want to talk about extreme
mind-numbing.
This guy is an extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, in terms of productivity and stuff like that, I mean, it's crazy, like, you know. But he does these insane tours where there's like 12, 15 different bands, and we all play like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's like thing, like rotate, like jumping off the stage and like in between bands, like 30 seconds, you know, it's like on stage and all out for like this time. And it's pretty awesome. It's really fun, you know, because you get to, you know, interface sort of like this cross pollination with all these different musicians.
Yeah.
Didn't get to see. And I've done more projects with them. We did a Masada thing, which is another project of his, and it's a continuing thing. We're doing a few more things this year, but he's someone who I met recently and who's a fixture in New York. Originally it was called the downtown scene. You know, everybody, critics and stuff, always put labels on stuff. You know, but there's certain artists that are associated with him much more than me, you know, like I'm just sort of a peripheral person, you know, but there's sort of a core group like Bill Frisell.
I've had a couple of guys on that have worked with him. I can't think who they are off the top of my head. Maybe it was Wayne. I don't even know.
Maybe I can't think of anything, but if it was guitar players, it could have been Mark Ribot. Was really close with him for many years.
It was somebody else. I didn't have Ribot. I'm trying to think who it was. But maybe Nels. Nels. It's probably Nels. Yeah.
That was a cool interview. I like that one.
Nels. Oh, what a guy. What a life he's had, man.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
He's had some highs and some lows, man. It's interesting. And but that's life for everybody. I mean, you live 50 years, you're pretty much going to have a bunch of that stuff. You know?
Business for sure. Well, in any kind of business. Really.
Yeah, and just in life, I think, you know, if you're leaving the house, and some people don't leave the house or on the internet all day, maybe that's probably not happening. But, you know, if you're
something else will happen.
Yeah, something else will happen, right? And Steve Coleman, you played with Steve quite some time.
Oh yeah, almost 10 years. Yeah, he was another mentor, you know, and so that was like after a certain period, and I was starting to get more into. Again, it was like the thing of like I did a lot of sort of jumping around and sort of. I think my early years in New York were very much influenced by Rodney. And his thing was like, you got to work, you know, so just work, learn your skills, learn how to read, learn how to play styles, you know. His thing was like styles. Okay, get all the guitars, play all the styles, you know. So I did that, and I like, you know, auditioned for Saturday Night Live and all those type of gigs, you know, and like it wasn't really my thing, like playing style. Like I was like, okay, this is cool, but like.
So his goal was to help you become a functionally paid guitar player, professional.
Yeah, pro.
You know? Yeah. Okay.
And you know, just learn that type of stuff, how to show up on time, what's expected of you, you know, just, you know, what kind of gear you need, what kind of, well, he had a sort of dichotomy, like the art and the craft, you know. He used to call it craft is like, is the styles, the gear, the skill sets, you know. And the art is sort of like whatever you're creating and contributing to the body of music, you know.
Yeah.
And his thing was like, well, if you do the craft, then that allows you to do the art, you know.
Which makes a ton of sense.
It makes sense, but it really, I mean,
it wasn't your thing.
One of the problems is like it's hard to really balance those things in reality.
Well, if the styles you're playing are not part of the art that's in your head.
Yeah, and then those things are getting farther and farther apart. Like I was doing quite conservative, more commercial type of stuff, and then in my head I was in these really far out areas, you know. So it was like, and then I made that record, like I said, like I did that competition, all that stuff, which was like a very conservative thing. And I took that money and made this quite radical record, and then I tried to shop that around, and people were like, "What is this? Like this isn't like we know you a little bit, but this I thought you did like this other thing," and like. I don't know what it is, you know. It's like, okay, whatever. So no labels weren't interested in that at all. So another mentor, you know, to help me in this area to try into this far out science stuff. So that's where the Steve Coleman thing came through, and I bothered him long enough that he sort of paid attention to me and was like, okay, I see this person is really interested in this, and we went really, really, really deep into like a lot of far out stuff. I mean, I can't it's like a 10, 12-hour session sitting there with transcribing Coltrane and talking about all the implications of this and looking at ancient Greek textbooks about, you know, like anything, like all kinds of esoteric stuff, esoteric knowledge. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned your wife earlier. She says you were really deep. I think anybody, my wife has said that, my buddies' wives that are like entrepreneur, you know, and I think anytime you are that creative person, whether it's music, business, whatever, I think that's part of the fun is, you know, exploring new stuff.
Oh yeah.
And pushing yourself.
Well, that's why, I mean, that's music, right? I mean, there's this, I mean, every day I pick up the instrument, I feel like I'm starting over again. You know, it's like, this is all new, you know, and there's a million different doors to open up and see what's inside. You know, I feel like that. I mean, that's what keeps me motivated, you know. And so, yeah, with somebody like Steve, I mean, this is another guy, this is probably the most intense personality person I've encountered, you know, and people like that are often seeking out other people like that who will sit with them and engage, you know.
Yeah.
I have the ability to do that. I can sit with somebody and stay focused on something for many, many hours in a row, you know, until we get to the end, you know, not be like, oh man, I'm hungry, I need a cup of coffee, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So that is my way of working too. It's like, you know, okay, I want to see it through to the end. You know?
Yeah.
Not just sort of get a little bit and be like, okay, I'm cool, you know.
Yeah. You want to like, you know, you want like some sort of like a white belt, then a yellow belt, then
well, there actually is no end, but there's
right.
You feel like when you feel like, okay, I've at least reached a sort of like another level. You know?
Right. I'm at a purple belt, a green belt, or whatever the hell that is. You know, I'm not going to get a black belt in this, but yeah. I totally get that.
There's study, and then there's practice on the instrument, you know, and then there's composition. There's all these different areas where that happens, you know. So,
tell me, anything you're looking to do more of over the next few years? This would be an interesting question to hear. What does your goal list look like? God, I can imagine you probably got like, you know, anything on there from like conquer the world to learn skateboarding to, you know, all sorts of intense things at a high level.
Definitely not skateboarding. Activities are they're declining in my life, but I have some things that I have to do. Like I got a grant this year that requires me to do the stuff for that grant, you know. So
not really. You could ask Ben.
Oh, Ben Wander?
Yeah.
It's the same grant. It's the same one.
The same grant? Oh my God. By the way, he was raving over the Monk record.
Oh, really?
Oh man. He was like, have you heard that thing? You've got to. Yeah. He was really.
I'm going to move because my computer is about to die. So
man. All good.
I'm just going to take it off, but I can keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to,
so you have a grant, you got to produce something from that.
So with that, I mean, I'm doing a project, the drummer that I mentioned before named Dan Weiss.
Yeah.
We're doing a double record this year of drums and guitar music. So he's writing half of it and I'm writing half of it. Actually, I'm premiering the first half of it this week. So
very cool.
I was just working on that this morning. And then let's plug this computer in. Then there we go.
Hey, you know what? That light behind you. Yeah. There you go, man. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Miles.
So that, and then I have a band called Trickster.
Yeah, talk about that.
Well, this was the bass player and drummer who I worked with Steve Coleman. Their names is Anthony Tidd and Sean Rickman. And they're like you know how bass players and drummers are. They sometimes they come together, you know.
Come in pairs, yeah.
Yeah, and these guys have worked together with Steve for like 20, 25 years or something. They have a very special kind of sound. And then I worked with them for 5 years or so as a rhythm section. So, you know, this is kind of an offshoot of that group with piano. And so we've made 2 records and we're doing tours and stuff like that. I really like this band. I mean, it was kind of a dream of mine to play with those guys because I saw them when I first came to New York, you know, and they this super high intensity, like very mysterious kind of futuristic funk sound, you know, and I mean, it's grounded in like, you know, like black music, funk, jazz, you know, and these areas, but very able to move in all kinds of different directions, you know.
That's
So
really cool.
it's not your typical so-called jazz group, you know. It's more of like a I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't really want to, but I'm working on that group. So part of this grant is to like do a third volume of compositions for them. I'll probably do that later, and then I don't know. I just kind of follow things. Things sort of appear, you know, and if they just sort of when they aren't appearing, I do a different project. Like when I did that Monk thing, there wasn't really much happening, you know.
Okay, cool.
So I was like, well, I think now it's time to do this, you know. I mean, I had other things I was teaching and I had a few gigs, but it was kind of a slow period for gigs. So
you embrace those slow periods and say, okay, it's a signal or whatever for me to just move to do something cool.
Well, if I say like, I'm just going to have a certain level of activity, and that activity is going to be directed either in some stuff that I have to do for other people, learn some music, whatever it is, or else if that's not happening, I'll just direct it towards all this giant endless list of stuff that I want to do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's good. So you're good with that, for lack of better terminology, downtime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not down with being broke, or I'm not down with.
Yeah, right on.
I like to, you know, be able to, and I'm not down with being isolated either. Like not feeling like I'm connected to what's happening. You know, I like to feel like involved. You know, but I don't want to be following the leader. You know, so it's sort of a balance. You know.
But what I'm hearing you say is that if it doesn't come from the outside, you'll create it for yourself. You'll make the phone call and you'll be the leader.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not you know, my hustle is a little lacking. I mean, I'll call my agent.
Whatever, you'll get something done. You're not going to just sit around. You're okay with it. You'll make.
I mean, the thing I'm best at is to just sit down on the faucet and do some creative work, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever. I had another period when I wrote a book. You know, that was a couple. You know.
That's the fundamentals of guitar.
Yeah.
Talk about that since you mentioned it.
Oh, that was a terrifying experience. I never want to write a book again, although I probably will. But I had been doing. I mean, I wasn't really experienced in teaching, but I had gathered some materials together for some, like I had taught at a few like institutes and things like that, you know, guest teaching and stuff like that. So I had like these little handouts and stuff like that. I was like, oh, maybe I can turn these into like a pamphlet, you know. So I had like a pamphlet. I was like, oh wait, I need to talk about, if I'm going to talk about that, I need to talk about this, and then I was like this, and then everything I do is like I have all this visual stuff. So I was doing it all on Adobe Illustrator, and I was drawing all these pictures. Because I was like, I can't just do it on staff because some people don't read music, you know, because that's my background. I was like, well, it's more visual, you know, or maybe you're just visualizing the guitar or whatever. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to, you know, and I don't know, it's just this endless can of worms. I thought it would take a few months, and it took like 3 years, you know.
Wow. And what's in what is it? So it's Mel Bay, Fundamentals of Guitar. What is in there in a nutshell?
Well,
because your fundamentals of guitar are much different from
like fundamentals of like how the guitar is kind of set up, like in terms of where the pitches are. But it's sort of it's a minimalist approach to the guitar, I would say. But it's sort of like, well, without taking anything for granted. Like it doesn't talk about style, for example. There's no jazz, there's no rock, there's no talking about style. It's just information.
That's good.
You know, kind of like a dictionary or something. But like the first section is just how to tune the guitar, but that was like, it turned into like 30 pages of how to tune the guitar, because it was like, well, if I'm going to talk about tuning the guitar, I need to talk about what if the guitar didn't have frets, or like, where does tuning come from? What's the history of tuning systems? Why do we
Okay.
use frets and equal temperament as opposed to just intonation? And why is the G string always out of tune? Because we're trying to tune with harmonics. A lot of people tune with harmonics, like on the 5th and 7th fret.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that those don't match the frets because it's not the same system. Those are two different systems you're dealing with.
You could do a consulting gig with Gibson on that one subject.
I'm sure they know plenty about that.
Why is the G string always out of tune?
Yeah, no, but I mean the frets are a logarithmic system.
Sure.
Powers of roots of 12 and stuff like that. 12th root of 2. Sorry, and each fret goes up another 12th root of 2, and then the harmonics are just whole number fractions, like 3/2 and 4/3 and stuff like that. So anyway, I don't need to get into all that, but that I had to then narrow that down to be like 10 pages, and then it goes into like, well, here's where each note is, how many of them are in different places. Then 2 notes, how many ways are there to play 2 notes? How many ways are there to play any 3 notes?
At the same time?
Yeah, like as a chord.
Oh, okay.
2 different strings. So that's all in there. And then like, how do those lead into one another? And what, this is like all kinds of stuff like that. And then the second half is all rhythm. So it's like picking, and finger stuff, and a big part of it takes drum rudiments, the rudiments of drum, like flams and paradiddles and stuff like that. Well, if you put those on a guitar, you could get around to any kind of note you want on any string.
Okay.
And I don't know. It drove me totally crazy. It was writing a book is not like music, it's totally solitary. So
it's very solitary, and you have to because I wrote a book on marketing and sales, but you have to remember when you're reading page 312, I don't know how big your book was, but you have to kind of remember what you said on page 24, because if it's contrary or irrelevant, and that's the tough part. That's what I thought.
You feel like you can't stop because you'll forget where you were and stuff like that. And like when you're writing music, I mean, you get together, you have a rehearsal, you try it out. Okay, I need to make some changes. Oh, you get some feedback,
Yeah.
But, you're writing a book, it's like, am I a total fraud? I don't know.
It's totally isolated. Yeah, very good point. No, it's a good point.
I mean, you might show it to some people, but nobody really wants to read it. It's like, okay, nobody has time to.
How big is the book?
Oh, it's a couple hundred pages. 170, 80 pages. I can't remember exactly. I mean, it was much longer, but
right. In spite of Miles' bad salesmanship of his own book, check it out. It's called Fundamentals of Guitar. What's the best place? Mel Bay, Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon. Yeah, you can get it on there. Yeah. But that was yeah. I think I'm happy with it, but it wasn't pleasant, right? That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any low points that you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, do you mean in career wise or personally?
Whatever you want to talk. They're both important, man.
I would say, like, yeah, I had. There's turning points, I mean, like, let's take, okay, there was a time, we talked about it before, when I was doing that competition, which I hated doing, but I needed the money because I didn't have any money because I was in the middle of getting divorced. That's the other part of that story. And I and it was like during Hurricane Katrina, and my father was like a refugee at that point. Like, he couldn't go back to his house.
Oh, he was living in New Orleans.
Yeah. And so there was all this stuff going on, and I was just like, I felt like nothing was like, I felt like I spent all this time with like this secret stuff that I wanted to do that wasn't happening, and I didn't see any way to make it happen. And I was like, oh, maybe this music thing isn't going to work out. I've had like a bunch of times like that where I was like, maybe maybe it needs to be something else,
Sure. That's tough.
And at a certain point, you're kind of pot committed, you're like, well, geez, I put 15 years into this. What am I going to do now, or whatever. So, and at that point, it wasn't that long. I mean, I had been, whatever, I'd been like 7 or 8 years in New York, so, but certain, it ebbs and flows like that, and there's like daily stuff like that,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, sometimes you just get this feeling, like, just looking at, like, just talking to your kids or whatever, and they're like, what's going to happen to the environment? Like, what are you guys doing with this? Like, how's this going to work out? And you're like, I mean, there's so much bigger, there's so many huge things going on that it's like, sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm just escaping into this fantasy world when I'm playing music, so I don't have to face all this stuff, and then that can feel selfish, and it goes in those cycles, so you have to contend with all that stuff when you're working in a kind of a field where you're not, the way that you affect society is not as apparent as if you were like a doctor without borders or something like that, like
Sure.
hands-on, out in the field, or whatever, just registering people to vote or something, it's like you don't get that. The feeling is much delayed and much more abstract, and some people deal more explicitly with like dealing with political issues in their music and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't do that. My approach is more like, I want to create beautiful stuff so that people can have that as a sort of solace from other things.
I agree with you. I think most musicians do that. They create music as a point of beauty and warmth and love, and to escape all this crap.
Well, it's hard. I mean, it's like a issue that you deal with when you're about to make something. Like, well, isn't it sort of your responsibility? Like, I was just looking at a thing. It was like Nina Simone saying it's the artist's responsibility to deal with, to make a statement about what's happening, deal with the social issues. And it's like, well, I mean, God, shouldn't we be talking about, all of this shit that's going down, like, in the music and putting it out there? But I mean, everybody's getting that, and they're getting it from more reliable sources than me, but maybe there's something, it's sort of like, well, how do you live in this world and make stuff and not have it be relevant to that time, and justify that I'm just going to make this world, this sort of imaginary world, as opposed to like commenting, but that's different ways, like I started reading fiction again. I didn't read fiction since I was in, and well, not really reading, I'm listening to it while I'm running, but I was listening to this book by this author, Haruki Murakami. Dude,
one of my favorite authors. Oh my God.
I never listened. Actually, the first thing I read of his was this book on running that he wrote.
Yeah, what I think about what I talk about when, something like that, right? What I think about when I'm running, or what I talk about when I think about running, something like that.
What we talk about when we talk about running is the play on the Raymond Carver short stories book, when we talked about love. But I listened to this other one called IQ 84.
Oh, that's the newer. That's like from that's like 1,000 pages or something like that, right?
But it's just this insane story, and it's like, what is going on? But it's so absorbing, and it's sort of like a place to go to. It's not really a comfortable place. Like, it's an extremely disturbing book, but it's actually, it's like, there's something about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to give myself over to this thing, and that lets me understand something about how to put things, how to just have a story that's not the story in the New York Times, or the story that there's these other possible ways,
But his whole thing is, in my opinion, in talking about the human condition, his characters all have a loss in some way, or there's a sense of loss, or they're longing for something, or something's missing, or they're looking for something. He's one of my favorite writers. Him and like Bukowski. He's just amazing.
I don't really know a lot about him. I just started, but I started, it's just while I've been running and doing other stuff where I can't, working on music. But I've been listening, going back to fiction, because to me, I mean, to me, it's like when I listened to Thelonious Monk and I was working on that body of work. It was like, this is a world. Like, this is the world you can go in. You go into that. I mean, it's like that with any artist who's consistent,
Yeah.
You can tell it's them, right? Bach is a world, whatever,
The Rolling Stones. I mean, it's tons of, yeah.
It's a world, it's like there's a certain sound, there's a thing, there's an identity, and that transports you and allows you to sort of ride that wave while it's happening and be uplifted, or be transported, and so that's, I don't know, I've just been thinking about that lately in terms of what I'm trying to do with my own little thing,
Yeah.
Trying to build this thing that's sort of continuing as opposed to changing lanes all the time,
Yeah, that's a tough, I think, for any artist that enjoys changing lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, less and less for me. I'm like, this is my lane.
What's that short story by Raymond Carver?
Raymond Carver? Well, that's a name of a collection of short stories, what we talk about when we talk about love.
Okay.
Well, I know about Raymond Carver because he was he lived in the Pacific Northwest in another small town called Port Angeles. His stuff is very melancholy, a lot of middle-aged sort of people with having midlife crisis.
In Raymond Carver's stuff.
Yeah, very, very, very dark, but the style of writing is what I really like. It's not so much the what the content or even the personalities of the characters. Is like, I like this style. I like the craft of writing.
Yeah. Well, when I read Murakami, I'm not a science fiction fan, but his books are science fiction. They're otherworldly. They're not like the shit he talks about. That's not, things just get swallowed up or somebody looks different. But what keeps them so tangible, in my opinion, is he's got a very real world out. Like, there's certain, like, jazz music always shows up. Spaghetti, boiled eggs. All of his novels have these.
Oh, really?
Every one of them, yeah. Because he ran a jazz club.
Yeah, I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, and he's always talking about jazz music and thumbing through old vinyl and eating boiled eggs, fish, noodles,
there's a
whiskey.
Seiji Ozawa, the conductor, the boss.
Yeah.
Where he talks about a bunch of classical music, and he knows them in great detail. I mean, he doesn't talk about music theory that much, but I mean, he's much more detailed than the casual listener.
Yeah.
Some very specific stuff. So he's obviously a detailed person, and also one of those people who, from that book, what we talk about when we talk about running, that was one where I was like, okay, this is a work ethic type of person. This is somebody who just sits down and goes to work every day.
Yeah. Yep.
He talks about the flywheel. I like the metaphor. Flywheel, big heavy wheel.
Yeah.
Well, the flywheel is hard to get started. It's like your creative process. It's hard to get started.
Yeah.
You got to crank it up. It has a lot of inertia, right? But once it's going, it's going.
Yes.
You just have to give it a little push, and it just keeps going and going and going. Flywheel moving, So I think about that. I think there's something to that.
I always
never have thought of music as being. I don't have much patience for like the whole. I'm a special person because I chose to do music. Therefore, I don't have to get up in the morning and do normal stuff. Like let's get up and do your don't like this whole writer's block and all that stuff. I don't get any of that stuff.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think but I operate on a consistency basis, same as you. I'm not like, even if I'm doing different projects, it's like, okay, let me make sure I hit this today or hit that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, you have to, I found if I'm not, I suffer. and whatever I'm trying to create suffers, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about gear for a few minutes. You had some beautiful guitars there in your man cave there in your studio, whatever.
I'll go back downstairs.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That I don't know if it was a Gibson, but it was a single pickup. It was behind you on your left.
Well, for many years since I was a teenager, I've been playing this. I guess since I was 19. When I was 19, I knew
That's so cool that you have a basement, man.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky here.
Yeah. We don't have basements in Florida.
That's right. Yeah.
The basement is the ocean.
Yeah. Here we go.
And you have a lot of that pickup, whatever that pickup is. I've seen that on several of your guitars, I think.
Right here.
That's
the one I got when I was 19. I got that in New Orleans, International Vintage Guitars. That's a Gibson 175 with a Charlie Christian pickup. So like, the ES 150s from 1937 to 1940. Those are the first electrics they made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had that pickup in them, and then they reissued it. I could never afford one of those. Those are like really expensive. But I got this one. This 175 from 1978 is not an exceptional guitar.
It's a beautiful guitar, though, man.
But in terms of the craftsmanship, it's it's a pressed plywood thing. But the pickup, I always liked this pickup, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but I got used to it. And it's extremely noisy, single well blade pickup, So lately they've become more popular, and so I got another one. I got a custom made one there. It's like a Les Paul body over there.
Yeah, with the same pickup.
Same pickup, yeah.
What's your number one?
Well, my number one is that 175.
Yeah.
I'm just so used to it. But it's not appropriate for everything. When you run it through effects and stuff, it or you play it loud, it feeds back and stuff. So
it's totally hollow, correct?
Totally hollow, and it's noisy. The pickup's noisy, so I have to use a pedal to cut the hum,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so that sound of that Charlie Christian pickup is kind of my sound now. I've kind of used it for so long. I'm just so used to it. It's kind of it's a very bright sound, and it's very exposed, but I like it. So I got this other one. There's a guy in the Netherlands that makes them, fabricates the pickups. He has a friend who fabricates pickups, and he makes the guitars. He makes these beautiful arch tops. But I was like,
okay,
Les Paul, because I want to travel with it. I'm sick of traveling with an arch top.
Yeah, it's tough. It's funny. I bought this very recently.
What's that, Ibanez?
Yeah, they call it a FA 100. It's a 175 basically.
Okay, look bigger. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little thicker, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, but the sound is so. I'm kind of late to the game with listening to guys like Grant Green and Kenny Barron, and once I started to, this is only like in the last year from interviewing all you guys, I just loved, I'm not a jazz guy, but I love the tone. I love the tone. So that's why I bought that guitar. And it's not an easy guitar to play. So it's like my practice guitar. And then when I pick up my Strat or my Les Paul, it's like, oh, okay, this is a lot. It's kind of like putting donuts on the end of the bat when you're taking swings, for me anyway.
Pat Metheny plays. I saw him with an Ibanez with a Charlie Christian. I don't exactly know what's going on, but Pat Metheny, right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
So I got together with him, and I had my old Charlie Christian guitar, and he was like, "Oh, what's that?" Or he had seen that particular thing, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is Charlie Christian. It's like a reissue." He was like, "Oh, I should check that out." And then he went on some sort of, is another obsessive type of person. He went on this. I got an email from him like a year later. It was like, "Oh, I got to tell you about this like voyage I went on to like search out these guitars. And he had found Charlie Christian's actual guitar, like the blonde ES 250, and then
Wow.
I don't know, he got a 150 or something. But then he found this guy Daniel Slayman in the Netherlands, who's making these reproductions, and he had him make one with individual pole pieces as opposed to the blades, so that you can kind of adjust them. So that's
the one you have.
That's where this guitar comes from. So I said, "Oh, can you make me a Les Paul with that same pickup with the individual pole pieces that Matheny wanted?" And he's like, "Yeah, cool." But now Matheny's been touring with this guitar, so now you can't even. This guy's too busy because he makes them all himself by hand in his shop in The Hague. You can't. His waiting list now is like years.
Oh, because of Pat had. What is that when you? How do you adjust the poles? Like, do you do that? Does it change your sound, and why would you do that?
Just to make them, there's a notch cut under the B string because it's usually too hot there, so you can adjust them, but the blade on that thing is just a piece of metal, if you want to file it down, and then you can't change it, you can't unfile it, so,
yeah.
So, pole pieces, you can just raise them and lower them to get each string kind of balanced.
Okay, I get you. What? Okay, so you got the Les Paul with the Charlie Christian pickup. You got the 175 with the Charlie. What would be your number 3?
Oh, I mean, I had this. What I used for years was this one. It's over on the side here. This Yamaha SA200. This is just a sort of a 335 style. This was like a Rodney Jones guitar because it was like you got to play styles, and this was like a Swiss Army knife.
Is it? Yeah.
So it's like. It's got, coil taps and all this. It's like you can get any kind of sound you want out of it. It's Yamaha, so it's real sort of generic. Like it's just really in tune. Plays. I haven't played it in a long time now.
All your guitars are sort of like the same. You have the burst, iced tea burst, or it's very uniform.
It's kind of unintentional. I don't have like any cool looking guitars. They're all just sort of wooden, I mean, this is a nylon string that I played when I was a kid. That one over there.
Yeah. What's that thing that looks like you could, like from Rollerball, the movie?
Have you ever seen one of these?
What is it? I don't know. It looks like something that you carry as a weapon walking through Brooklyn.
Called a Gittler.
No, that is wild.
It has no neck, so you can put your finger right through it. It's just I borrowed this from my teacher Townsend out in Port Townsend because I was thinking about getting one, but I can't afford it. But
how do you play that if there's no neck?
You just play it. You just kind of. I mean, I'm used to putting my thumb over the neck, so it's a little hard. But if you put your thumb in the middle of the back, it's God, your fingers are gigantic. Holy crap, man! My God, that is awesome. 25.5 inches scale. But this is a funny guitar. I don't know. I borrowed it from him to see if I can actually play it, and I kind of can't. But I think it's so cool looking, But it's very cool looking. It was a guy in the '70s that made these. He made only 60 of them. Oh wow! And he moved to Israel and tried it, and then he got ripped off by another company. It was like a whole crazy story. But Gittler, there's one of these. There's a couple in museums. And there's these types which were made later. This is not the original 60. This is something else. But there's a company making them again now. His son and stuff, and they're insanely expensive. So what does that go for new now? If they make them? I think they're like, I don't know. They're like $7,000 or something like that. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. Holy shit. No, it's if I had that to spend on a guitar, I'd probably go buy an ES 150. Yeah, that's a lot of money for a guitar. You should. That looks like something you walk through the village at like 2 a.m. with, in case somebody comes near you. It's just my fantasy to be able to travel with something like that. I have several different like headless guitars that I've tried out, and I can never quite get them to hold the strings that I want. I play thick strings, so it's kind of. What do you play? 14 Tomastic flat wounds. 14 flat wounds. I mean, sometimes. Holy crap! 13s on this one right now. You have what? 13s on 13. Man, I'm struggling. I got 11. I've never played flats, but I had this guitar and I may put rounds back on here just to see it. But
these are 11. I couldn't imagine what 14 flats are like. Holy cow.
I've always played them. I mean, I'm just used to it.
That's what you do.
They feel like, I don't know. They feel like too, I don't know, jangly for me. So,
yeah. Give me your knee-jerk reaction. Top 3 Desert Island discs, just for now.
Oh. Well, I mean, I'd have to. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I guess I would take some stuff I listened to recently, maybe. Well, Desert Island, I mean, it's hard because there's Desert Island stuff and then there's stuff that's just like really important records for you personally. You know, like there's stuff that has a lot of, like, I would say Coltrane at the half note in 1965. There were some tapes that were circulating for a lot of years as sort of, you know, like underground tapes.
Mm-hmm. I remember those days. Bootlegs,
right? And then they re-released it, and I got it on vinyl. It's called One Down, One Up. But it's some live stuff from the half note in 1965. It's like peak Coltrane, you know. It's like the sort of Bible of Coltrane for Coltrane fans, you know. And those I mean, it's a pinnacle of that group, and which is the pinnacle of all kinds of stuff, you know. So that's, I mean, in terms of a Desert Island, I gotta put that in there, you know. And then I would have to put in some Bach. I'd have to put in probably violin sonatas. I don't know which performance. The first one I had was Jascha Heifetz, that was just the first one I had, so I listened to it a lot. I ended up, I mean, I think I like, there's one by Arthur Grimaud that's really nice that I ended up probably listening to more. It's a little more mellow. The Heifetz is really intense. And then, I don't know, I think it'd have to be something from somewhere else. Like, I was just playing my daughter this morning. We were in the pool, we were in a swimming pool last week, and she was making these sounds with the water, like bloop, 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 like making these kind of bubble sounds. And I was like, you know, they do that. I had this tape of pygmies in Cameroon doing this water music, like they're like boom, ticka, ticka, boom, ticka, ticka, like all this stuff with the making, like there's several people doing like counterpoint rhythms with the water.
That's wild. What's the like? How random is it that you have that?
Well, no, I was just like, I need to play it. And I found it online this morning. I was playing it for her at breakfast. I was like, you know, that sounds you're doing, you know, people do that, like for music, you know. And so they have videos and it showed how, because it was cool, because I always imagined, I had this tape that I listened to, I don't know how many times. I listened to it over and over again. I think it was called Heart of the Forest.
What's it called? Because I want to look that up. If I look up on YouTube.
Heart of the Forest. I think that's what it's called, Heart of the Forest. I haven't thought about it in years, but I just thought about it this morning. But there's also all this sort of polyphonic singing, and it's from Cameroon.
You know what, man?
I don't know why I thought of that, but I would need to have some kind of field recording in that, because I really love like folkloric music and field recordings and stuff of just people just making music in a social way, as opposed to like you know, art music.
Yeah. Your kids are your kids are still young, but what you'll find when they're in their mid to late 20s, all this stuff is going to come back, and they're going to be like, have so many memories about this. It's really cool, because raising kids is very tough, as you know, and there's not a lot of attaboys you get for it. But when they're in their mid 20s, you start getting them, and all this kind of stuff that you talk about, they're going to have so many memories about that. Because I always think, man, I didn't do enough for my kids, and they're like, hey, man, remember we went to this and that on that vacation? I'm like, oh, I said, did you guys go on enough vacations? Like, Dad, yeah, we had great times. I'm like, okay. Because always, you know, I'm always like, I don't know if I did enough or whatever, but, you know, apparently it worked out. They're not axe murderers, and they still talk to me. So
Yeah.
Far.
You want to.
Well, you want to feel you did that job properly.
And you just don't have that much time, you know?
Right. And it's tough.
I spent about 200 days last year on the road, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's tough, man. It's tough. Even if you're home, it's tough. Tough question. What makes you happy?
I think, well, oh, well, happy. I think I need to understand what that means also. But I mean, I like providing something for other people. I like it when I see other people enjoying something that I've been a part of making it happen. And that includes music, but it also includes, like, I like cooking for people. I like make a big meal and seeing everybody enjoying that, you know.
So being of service, kind of.
Behind the scenes, like, made it happen, and people are enjoying that thing, and it's somehow enriching their day, or their, you know, on a deeper levels, their psychological state or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I that makes me happy much more than saying, like, oh, I was on the, you know, that record or that or whatever.
Yeah.
I graduated from that place or anything like that. That to me is irrelevant. But
Yeah.
But when I'm able to sort of make something happen, and then that has an effect that's sort of tangible. Like, even if somebody says, oh, you know, I was in the hospital and I was listening to your record and it really kind of kept me going in this rough patch or whatever, like that, you know.
Yeah.
That's special, you know.
Very much.
It happens in very small ways, you know, just like, you know, you take the time to sit with somebody and listen to them and listen to their story, or you take the time to sit there and really sit with the kids and read them. I read them a story at night, you know, and that makes me happy. I feel like, okay, that's something that they're going to remember. I think of this sort of like, what's, as you were saying, you know, this stuff is like, it has an effect that may be far delayed beyond,
Very.
you know.
Yeah. My daughter, you always used to say, I remember her doing it. She's, when I was putting her to bed, she goes, Dad, tell me something funny. Tell me something funny. And then a few weeks ago, I was looking through in my closet. She had written me a note, and probably 10, you know, 50, she's 20 now. So maybe 10, 12 years ago, it said, Dad, when you get off the phone, tell me a funny story. So that, it's like what you did with your daughter, man. The bloop bloop.
Yeah.
You know, that taking that interest is that's the things they remember, and it's really cool.
Attention, you know, and it's harder now because everybody's looking at phones and stuff, and it's like they know, you know, people, that has an effect, you know, when you're talking to you and you're looking at your phone. You know, it's like, come on, you know, let's be.
Yeah, let's chill for 10 minutes. Yeah, I know. Put the phone down. Oh, I know, man. I asked you this before, but on top of all the work you've done and everything you've accomplished, you're got a wife, 3 kids. Are you ruthless with your time? Because I can't imagine. I mean, you get a lot done, man. So you got to be pretty ruthless with your time management.
Yeah, it's planned out. I have in 5 minutes. I have after that, 5 minutes after that, I got to go take my son to the dentist. You know, so everything is. I mean, I've had conflicts with people in the past who are like, yeah, whatever, so it'll happen whenever. I'm like, man, I got hard out at 4 o'clock, you know, or whatever. That's when I'm leaving. I'm packing up my stuff and leaving at that time.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with setting boundaries with people who don't work that way.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have the same, you know, some people are just more like, you know, freewheeling, you know.
No, but if you have time and you have shit to do and responsibility, you don't necessarily have that luxury, man.
But if people, I mean, you know, if people know that you're that way, then they'll respect it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he's just being an asshole, you know. It's not. That's like, you know, I gotta go, you know. It's like and I'm just like, okay, we're gonna hit at 1. We're gonna hit at 1. We're gonna be done by 2. You know, it's not like we're gonna spend half an hour having a coffee, and you know, I mean, that's nice too. But you know, if it sort of like fits in, you know, I'm down to improvise.
Yeah, if you can.
If it's there, but you know, it gets less and less, and the time is you don't get it back. You know?
No, you can make more money. You can't make more time, man. I always say that.
You really have to. I don't have a lot of patience for people taking my time. You know, that when it's
I know exactly how you feel, man.
so let's get to the point, you know.
Tell me, most important thing your dad taught you.
Oh, let's see. I think it would be like, this is really weird. This is the first thing that comes to mind. This is because, you know, when you get older, you start repeating stuff your parents said to you.
Yeah, man.
And
You start repeating stuff in general, you're going to find like your wife will should be, you know, you told me this yesterday. Oh, I did.
but there's like, I'm naturally quite a chaotic person, like in terms of like where I put stuff and all that, and like, and being organized and all that. And so my dad would always say like, well, your house should be organized in such a way that somebody who comes in there and needs to find something should be able to find it, even if you don't tell them where it is. Like, I need to find the scissors. Where would those be? You know, like, well, they would be in this drawer. It can't be like there's a drawer that has like batteries and hairbrushes and rubber bands and like cupcake things. And like
order.
Like that's.
So your dad was very organized and into order.
But it kind of is, because it's like when I have that, which is a mundane thing, but it's doable, like making your bed, hanging the tools in the cable, putting the cables away and all that stuff. Like when that's done, like I feel mentally better. Like
yeah.
It's sort of like, it's like you can accomplish things that are mundane, and then you have actually accomplished something, as opposed to say like, I need to write a brilliant 4 bars of music. Like that might not happen. You can't just make that happen.
Yeah.
You write something, but it might not be. It might be garbage, you know. Which for me it usually is. You know, 90%.
Oh, I don't buy that, man.
No, I mean it usually is. I mean, because it's like, for me, the writing process is like about, you know, most of it goes in the trash and then a little bit you keep, you know. But I make myself do it every day.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't want to sit there and wait. So I'm just going to do it. But, you know, so I treat that the same way as this other stuff. But the other stuff, you can do it very well. You can wash the dishes and put everything away very well. And then like, that's, you can feel like, okay, now I've done something, so whatever else happens today, at least I've accomplished these things.
Little gains.
It's like these, this is small victories, you know. I think that's sort of something from him, you know, that I observed. You know, it's like, just being consistent, writing things down, like keeping track of a list of things to do, and that leads to a way of operating that then enables you to be creative, because you're not having to apologize to somebody because you forgot to call them back, and you're not missing double booking, and you're not, you know, all these things that, you know, you see a lot of people that are spending a lot of time sort of like backpedaling and trying to sort of fix mistakes we try to do it the quick and easy way, and then it ended up taking longer and costing more money, and we don't need a plumber for this. I got a guy who can, you know, it's like, let's just get the plumber, you know, like, it's like, all that type of stuff, you know.
I'm with you on that.
So,
how about your mom? Sorry.
Side of life, if I can get that together, my creative thing it works much more smoothly, because I feel like things are kind of like reliable in other areas, you know.
Yeah, well, you have more clarity when you.
Yeah.
How about your mom? What's the most important thing she taught you?
As a person, she's a different person. She's in like she will say exactly what she's thinking at any given moment, and she's a highly emotional, creative person. So she thinks in like metaphors and mythologies, and everything to her is like symbols. And I mean, it's very hard to describe in a short time, but I get a lot of artistic, creative, like all I really have to do is think about her way of doing stuff, and that gives me a way to do stuff.
That's cool.
I mean, like if I think of what is the way I would proceed, I can just kind of think of how she would do. I mean, she's a painter, but for me, it's the same thing. It's like, well, you would just put out this sketch, or you might take of something you did before and then make a variation, you know, and then tap into this sort of this non-linear, non-analytical type of thinking. That's just feeling, you know, and I feel like I can kind of access that by just imagining I'm with her, you know.
That's cool, man. So you had like the yin and yang with both your parents.
Yeah, you could say that.
That's cool.
My stepfather as well, you know, who I grew up with, is a big influence. You know?
Very cool, man. 2 more questions. Do you have any, besides cooking, which actually is the #1 hobby for musicians, do you have any other hobbies outside of music?
Well, drawing, making visual arts,
That's cool.
album covers and stuff like that. I don't get to it that much. It was what I did before I did music. I did that. You know,
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
when I was a kid, you know.
What do you cook, by the way?
Oh, anything. But I'm very sort of like methodical about it. I want to like learn how to, you know, okay, if we're gonna make like, you know, French food, I got to study a few things about French cooking. It's, you know, like different. I have a few go-to dishes. You know, it's usually something kind of fast, and I usually have ingredients for. But I get a lot around Thanksgiving, and I get a lot of requests for pies because my pastry game is pretty strong.
That's cool, man. There's nothing like a homemade pie, man.
I've talked much more proudly about my pastries than about any musical output I've made. But, no, I work on that, you know, and then I mean, I don't have any hobbies. I don't think. I mean, I like to build stuff. I like to work with my hands. You know, I build stuff for the kids, and you know, and all that. And then I run. That's my latest thing. You know, but
that's important, man.
That's not really a hobby. It's more sort of like keeping myself from, you know,
from just falling apart.
Declining after 40.
Oh, dude, trust me, man. It's really important to do that. Hey, and last question, Miles, and I know how pressed you are for time, so thank you. You've been really generous, and I really appreciate your time and being so cool.
This is a long one. I hope people make it through. So.
Everybody's make through. Yeah, man. It's only people are. It's like there's no such thing as too long, only too boring.
Well, okay. I hope it's not that. But.
No, it's definitely not that. We would have ended earlier. Trust me, because it's not boring to me either. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional, and how much is a part of aging?
10 years. So 10 years ago, I was 35. I mean, you know what it comes down to is kind of like approaching a point of not giving a fuck.
Absolutely, man. Good for you.
I'm not there, but that's where I want to get, you know, or something like that. Or like, not in terms of like everything, but just in terms of like, I really just am gonna like, I'm just gonna go down this way, and this is my lane. I'm gonna do it, you know, and I'm not gonna be concerned. And by saying that, I don't mean like writing people off or like being conceited. I mean like I'm not going to be so concerned with trying to please people or spending so much time trying to I spend a lot of time like as a sideman or as an assistant or as someone sort of right-hand man or something like that, sort of like doing a lot of work that is not really related to me, but is a learning experience for me, but then is like sort of ends up being a lot of work that I didn't really lead to something that I could use, you know. And so a lot of it is like I like to. It goes back to this thing with mentors. Like I like to please. I like to demonstrate to somebody else that I'm interested in the subject and that I'm competent at it.
Gotcha.
And I still feel like I need to do that, I guess, but less so. I think
for you, man.
Becoming less of a thing like that. It's more like, okay, I feel a little more confident that not a total fraud and that I'm sort of working in it. Not totally. Oh, that's my friend at the door for the rehearsal. But you know, I'm not there, but I'm more there than I was 10 years ago. You know, it's sort of,
yeah.
It's a thing of like, just not being concerned on a daily basis that I'm not included in something, or what some things are happening that are cooler, you know, or this person has that thing, or, you know, being competitive. I'm you know, that whole thing is, I'm fine being where I am and where I'm going. You know?
Good for you, man. That's some version of that is the number one answer to that question.
Yeah.
For people, once you hit 45, and even more so at 50, once you hit 50, it's like it's like magic almost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, I don't give a fuck. And you know, not in an arrogant way, like, just exactly what you're saying. You know, it's just like, okay, whatever.
This is Dan Weiss.
Dan, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, podcast.
Go play some drums, man.
Yeah, he's a monster. You got to check him out. So,
hey, let me tell people where they could find you. First of all, thanks again, man. I really appreciate your time. It's Miles Okazaki. His last record is called The Sky Below. It is a monster record. This guy's putting out a ton of energy, man. If you like any kind of improvisational stuff, he's a guy you really ought to be listening to. If you're into Monk, please check out his 70-song opus. It's the complete works of Monk, volumes 1 to 6. It's called Work, and Lord knows that was a lot of work. Go to Miles' website too. He's got a very robust, very thorough website. It's at Miles Okazaki, Miles, M-I-L-E-S. Okazaki is spelled O-K-A-Z-A-K-I, milesokazaki.com. On Instagram, he's at Okazaki Studio. The Sky Below you could find on his website, I believe. Work you could find on Bandcamp. Again, if you're into Miles, this is like a must-have kind of thing. If you're in Michigan, actually, as if this guy's not doing enough, he's flying out to Michigan on a regular basis to teach there. So if you're at anywhere near the University of Michigan and you're looking to work with Miles, I would jump on this thing. And everybody that's a guitar player, if you want to check out the Mel Bay Fundamentals of Guitar record, I guess you could find, Fundamentals of Guitar book. You could find that on Amazon, and Trickster and all Miles' other gigs is on his website at milesokazaki.com. Is there anything else I missed or anything else you'd like to promote?
I think you covered it, Craig. Thank you.
Yeah. Man, thank you very much. You're such a talented guy, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everything. Hopefully I'm in the city. Maybe you'll be playing out. That'll be very cool. Yeah. Hang on one second. I'll wrap up with you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Miles Okazaki. Check out and support Miles' music at milesokazaki.com. Again, it's OKAZAKI.com. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Miles, thank you so much, brother.
All right, thanks, Greg.